If you want to know how to create a shadow in Cricut Design Space, there are a few different ways that you can do this, and each has their own look to it. We will be covering each of these ways today, and you will learn how to make an outline in Cricut, as well as how to make a shadow in Cricut Design Space. Hi, I'm Kelly, a Cricut user and crafter, and I've been using Cricut or similar machines for several years, and I've been an avid crafter my entire life. And I'm coming to you here from my crafting den to talk to you about Cricut. So let's get started. Like I mentioned, there are a few ways on how to make shadow letters in Cricut Design Space. Number one is Cricut fonts with shadows, and there are so many fonts on Envato Elements that you can use for this exact purpose. Next is to use the offset tool, and the last one is manually adding a shadow in Cricut Design Space. Now, the easiest way to make shadow letters in Cricut Design Space is to use a font that already has the shadow layer added to it. There are many of these fonts available in Envato Elements, and I'm going to show you the method using the authentic script font. Definitely be sure to check out Envato Elements, especially when using these types of fonts. They really have a huge range of fonts, graphics, images, and templates that can help you not only in your small business, but in many different types of projects as well. I really love the versatility of things that they have available that'll help me in pretty much every Cricut craft that I'm going to do in the future. It's fantastic. They also have some other amazing things that'll help you in your business, like invoice templates, flyers, and even some website templates that you may like. And with their easy to understand licenses and no lock-in contracts, you can cancel at any time. You'll need to download and install the authentic script font, and be sure to install both the script font and the extrude font, because that will be the second layer that we're going to use in this tutorial. So first, I'm going to click on the text button, which is on the left-hand side of the screen, and it'll open up a text box. Now I'm going to go to the text feature near the top left-hand of the screen, and I'm going to search for the authentic script font. Here you'll see I have multiple of the fonts available. What I'm going to do for the first one is I'm going to just load the authentic script font onto my canvas. Next, I'm going to right-click and duplicate the font so that I have two of them. The second one, we're going to change the font. So now this is where the extrude font comes in handy. So we're going to once again go to the text section and change it to the extrude. Now you'll see there's both extrude and shadow, but we're going to be using extrude in this lesson. Now you'll see it looks a little bit strange, but we're going to get there. Our next step is to right click and weld the font, because these letters are all separate pieces, so we need to make sure that we're making it one solid piece. Now we're going to send it to the back because it's currently in front of our text and we need it behind. So we send it to the back, we zoom in a little bit, and we can now line up the font with what we have on the canvas. You can even change the color of the font by selecting the font, going to the operations section near the top, click on the gray button and change it to white so we can see what we're dealing with, or another color, that's also fine. And we're going to move that around. And now we can see we now have almost an extruded 3D shadow looking font in Cricut Design Space. And now you can see exactly what it's going to look like once you have cut it out of something and applied it to an item. Now we're going to look at how to outline text, and to get the look that we want, we're going to need to use the offset tool in Cricut Design Space. So let's take a look at how that works. We're going to be taking our existing canvas and once again using the text tool, and the font that I'm going to be using for this one is Artzopo. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. So I'm going to once again open the text function, search for the font that I want, and there we go. Right at the top we have the font that we want. So we have selected that one. I'm going to type in patience because it's something that I could learn a little bit of. And when we have the text selected, you will see at the top of the screen that the offset function is not grayed out. When we don't have the text selected, we can't click on it. So we're going to select the text and click the offset button. Now you'll see a little pop-up, and it has a section that says distance, one that says corner, and then weld offsets. So the distance will show you how big the offset is going to be around the letters. So we can scroll it like that if we want to. We can just move the little dot. If we move it more to the right, it'll get bigger. And if we move it more to the line in the middle, it'll get smaller. If we move it on the other side of the line, it'll go on the inside of the letters, but that's not what we want to do today. So we're just going to move it a little bit on the other side and take a look at what our word looks like behind it. It might be a little bit big, so I'm going to reduce that a little bit. So let's say 0.2 centimeters. And I'm going to click somewhere on the screen to make the changes reflect on the canvas. And now I'm happy with that, so I'm going to move on to the next section, which is the corners. So these are the rounded corners selected, which is generally the most popular one. Or we can have the squared off corners selected. So if we tick that box, you may not see as much of a difference on this font because the font is quite rounded itself. But on things that have more blockier edges, you will notice a difference when you have that selected. And to weld the offsets just means to have the offset in one layer. So we're going to click apply. And we can see now that we have an offset on our text in Cricut Design Space, which is exactly what we wanted. Manually adding shadow text in Cricut Design Space. Now this is a method that will work with any font, and it may seem complicated, but it's actually really easy. So let's take a look at how that's done. So we're going to start off creating a shadow. I'm going to use the bouquet typeface font. So I'm going to click on text, and I'm going to type in bouquet. So we have the typeface font, so we're going to select that one. And once again, I'm going to type in whatever I want to write. Okay, so we now have our phrase. We're going to duplicate the phrase that we have, and I'm going to move it lower and slightly more to the right of the text that we have. Now we can also zoom in a little bit if we want to see it a little bit closer. And I'm going to right click and send that text to the back. What I'm also going to do is change the color of the top layer. So we're going to, once again, let's use the little purple color so we can really get a feel for what our design is going to look like. Now you can see very clearly that this is what the shadow is going to look like. And you can move this around to see how big you want your shadow to be. There's no hard and fast rule here. Whatever you like will work just fine. Now, the best way to do this kind of thing is to get your offset at the level that you want it. So I think that is going to be perfect. So before we move on, I'm going to take the top layer and I'm going to duplicate it. Then we're going to take the existing ones and we're going to click the slice button. And you'll see your text looks a little bit funny now. But we're going to drag some of them away. So this one we don't need, we can delete that. We don't need that, we can delete that. And all we're going to leave is the ones at the back. So the one that looked like the shadow, we're going to leave that one. And you see if we line it up here, we send it to the back, it lines up perfectly with the one that we have duplicated. So the reason why we do this is because when you're layering vinyl on top of each other, if you had to layer those like that, you would have weird looking lines on the inside of your top layer, and we don't want that. And now we are ready to cut this. So I'm going to make sure that I have the correct machine selected. I've currently got it set to my Cricut Joy, but we're going to be using the Cricut Maker 3 in this video, and we're going to cut out the vinyl. So when we click Make It, it'll sort our project into the different mats, and we can see there we have mat 1, which is gray, and then we have mat 2, which is purple, and we're going to load vinyl onto our mats in that order and cut them out. Now, a very important part of cutting something on your Cricut is to get the right cut settings. First of all, we're going to be cutting the gray layer with a normal permanent vinyl. So we're going to be using a cutting mat, but for the purple layer, I'm actually going to be using a smart vinyl, which means that I'm going to be cutting on my Maker 3 or your Explore 3 if you have one, without a mat. So I'm going to select that layer, and I'm going to select without a mat on this side, so that the machine knows where to cut everything. So we're going to reselect number 1 because we want to start cutting with the gray layer. It will start cutting from whichever layer you have selected, so make sure that you click on layer 1. We're going to click continue. It will connect to the machine, so we need to turn the machine on. And once it has connected to the machine, it will show you your favorite materials that you have selected. If it's a brand new machine, you won't have anything here, but don't worry. You can click over to the popular tab and it will have a list of pre-populated materials that you can use. So we're going to be using the premium vinyl permanent glossy setting, as that is what the label tells me on the Cricut vinyl packaging. And then we're going to load up our vinyl and we're going to send it to cut. When we are done cutting with the first layer and Cricut Design Space will prompt me to cut the second layer, then I will need to go back and I'm going to be using the shimmer vinyl setting, as the vinyl we're going to be using is this one, and it is a shimmer vinyl. It'll tell you on the side of the packaging right there. So we then know what vinyl to select, and we will then select that vinyl and then click continue again. Now I'm going to be using the Smart Vinyl Shimmer Red as well as some normal silver permanent vinyl. So for the permanent vinyl, I'm going to be using my standard grip cutting mat. So because our first layer is the gray layer, we are first going to prep our mat with the silver vinyl. So we're going to remove the protective sheeting, open up our vinyl. What I like to do is to very slowly apply the vinyl from one corner and then roll it out to the rest, gently pressing down so that the vinyl sticks to the mat. If you do see any bubbles in your mat, then it's more than likely just a piece of dirt. So you can lift back the film and just roll it out. Now we can start with the machine bit. So we're going to load it into the machine and click send. Now that our vinyl has been loaded, we're going to load it up here. And this button is flashing because it's telling us to load the material. So we're going to place the mat under these two hooks and it will load it in and read the length of the mat. Make sure that you have enough space behind the machine and that there's nothing interfering. And if that is the case, you can click the flashing play button to start the cut. Now that the cut has been completed, we're going to check to see if the vinyl has cut through correctly. And I'm going to be using a weeding tool. And as you can see, it has a little hook at the end, so we can easily grab the vinyl. I'm going to hook a little section around a cut line and see if it easily lifts up. And we can see that it does, as we can see the backing right there. So I'm going to click the flashing load and unload button to unload the mat. And there it releases the mat and we can see our vinyl decal has been cut. So next we're going to load the Smart Vinyl, and obviously we don't need a mat for this one. So I'm just going to open the box and load up the vinyl. So this is the shimmer vinyl that we have. And we're just going to load it straight into the machine. Now that I've changed the material selection in Cricut Design Space to shimmer, I'm going to load it and we are ready to cut, so we can press play. And again, it has finished cutting, but we are first going to check that it is cut correctly. And we can see that it has, so I'm going to unload. And this one's a little bit more difficult to see, and now we can pack away our machine. All right, so we have our two pieces that we've cut. I'm going to now flip this mat over and remove the mat from the vinyl so that we don't curl the vinyl or damage it in any way. This is a good habit to be in for all of your Cricut projects. And then we place the protective sheeting back onto the mat, and we can then store our mat away. Now I'm going to trim down my vinyl. It is also important to note that with the shimmer vinyl, you do get strong grip transfer tape in the the vinyl when you buy it, and this is what we need for this type of vinyl. Now, next is for my favorite thing ever, and that is weeding. Weeding is removing the excess. So all of this on the outside we don't need. So I'm going to take my weeding tool and I'm going to dig it into the corner and lift the vinyl back and pull it away carefully. There was a piece there that didn't quite stay behind, so I'm going to just do that again, making sure that that piece stays. You can also use your weeding tool to help pieces stick down, like that one. So use your weeding tool to anchor it to the page and then pull the vinyl back. So we can see our design and there's nothing that has been left behind here. So we now don't need this and we can put this in recycling. And we do the same with this section. And then we also have to remove all the bits on the inside. Now this is where we're going to cut a piece of strong grip transfer tape that is going to fit along here. And you can reuse this several times, so don't worry. I'm going to remove the backing, lay it on top of the decal, use a squeegee tool to get out all of the air bubbles, turn it over. You can squeegee it from the other side as well. And we're going to pull the vinyl away from the transfer tape. I like to keep the transfer tape flat on the table and we move the vinyl back. If a piece does stay on the transfer tape like that, we just push the transfer tape back down, secure it onto the transfer tape and remove it. There we go. Next, we're going to place some parchment paper on top of the layer, the section that we're going to layer it onto. We're going to place the decal on top and line it all up. And this does give us the chance to line it up without anything sticking. Okay, place the transfer tape down on the table, lift it up, and lay it down. Now we can see we have perfectly layered our layered font. And what we can do now is to place it on something. So we can flip this over, burnish it a little bit more, and slowly remove the transfer tape. Again, if you do get pieces like that that stick up, just flip them over onto the vinyl, just like that. And next we're going to take an alcohol swab to clean the surface of what we're going to be applying it to remove any oils and dirt that may be on the surface, as that will stop the vinyl from curing properly. And we can then place the decal onto the object. You can fold it in the middle, place it down like that, rub it from the inside out, try and get the bubbles out. Take your burnishing tool, burnish it on properly. Now, because this is strong grip transfer tape, we're going to let the silver part of the vinyl cure for a little bit, as the vinyl cures over a 72-hour period. And if you had to try and roll it back now, the silver vinyl would come with it. So we're going to let this cure for a little while, and we'll come back in about an hour or so and remove the transfer tape. All right, so it's been a while, and we're going to try that again. And there we go. So it may be a little bit challenging getting it off, especially if you're using strong grip tape on normal vinyl. But with a little patience, you can have your design, and it looks like it was actually made on this tin, the perfect choice. And like I said, we can reuse this transfer tape. So I always just put it back on the backing. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check out the Envato Tuts YouTube channel for more Cricut tutorials, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss another upload. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, Be kind to someone today. See you soon.